Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Well, if you know what this is and the mirror side of it excites you, then you and I might be in the same club. This is an 80s Gibson chainsaw case, and usually what's inside an 80s Gibson chainsaw case is an 80s Gibson guitar. So let me show you what's inside this one. So this is a personal purchase of mine, something that I really really wanted. I saw the condition of this thing and just had to have it. This is an 84 Gibson Les Paul Studio Standard. And no, I'm not keyword spamming there. It really is a Studio Standard. So I'll show you exactly what a Studio Standard is in a little brochure that I got from Gibson many years ago. In brief, it's a studio with a bound top, very much similar to a standard, and a bound fretboard, very much similar to a standard, except it's got dot inlays, and some of the materials are slightly different. So essentially, this thing is a little bit less frilly version of a standard, but a significant upgrade from a studio. This is basically what Gibson was putting out right when the studios first got started. So they really weren't even sure what the studio line was going to be yet. That's why I think this thing's cool, because it's got the exact same Tim Shaw era pickups that the other guitars of this era have. And, you know, it's just a really nice, really well fitted piece. And, you know, I'm excited to show it to you today. So let me tell you exactly what I want to do with this thing today. And really it's just general cleanup. I just bought this thing from a reverb seller, and while they did quite a few things to kind of restore it in a way or kind of get it ready for sale, there are a few things I noticed that are just bothering me. So I've got some cracks in the actual knobs themselves, these speed knobs. There was nothing special about the knobs themselves, but you can see that since they're clear, you can see the cracks running in where the posts, I guess, were a little bit too big for the holes. I'm going to be replacing those with genuine Gibson parts, and I want to get inside this thing and make sure that these are the original pickups. They really look like it. These pickup rings are exclusive to mid-80s Les Pauls, and the pickups themselves have just the right patina on them, so I don't expect any issues there. I've never opened the guitar, so I don't know what is inside here or inside here, and I want to make sure that things look original inside there. And I need to put some new strings on it, just kind of give everything a polish. I want to try to get some of the tarnish off the pickups before that turns into pitting. Same thing with the bridge. There's already a tiny amount of pitting on the bridge, but the stop bar I think I can save. And like I said, just kind of give everything just a general cleaning. You know, I had in my head where I wanted to start with this thing, and then I realized that there's a few parts here that I might actually need to replace. And I'm looking at the tuners, and the tuners are not all the same. This tuner is some kind of either a Clusen or some kind of an off-brand that's got a vintage style split post. And the rest of these are pretty much standard Gibson deluxe tuners. You'll notice like this one's got a ferrule, it's a push-in ferrule, and this one's got a screw-in ferrule. So I need to change this one to match the other 5 or get a new set of 6. Like I said, I'm replacing the knobs, but I was looking at this switch tip while I was at it, and I'm like, well, this switch tip is black. And I don't remember a Gibson that used a black switch tip and a cream ring or other cream appointments. So I may need to address that too. So what I think I'll do is just detune this. Oh, and the action is quite high, I should say that. The action is high and the bridge settings are all off. So detune this, put a capo here, undo the stop bar, set those to the side, and then I can kind of get a look inside at my electronics. You know, I want to make sure I'm dealing with original 84 pickups. Okay, with the stop bar and strings off to the side, I'm just going to take the bridge off so that I don't do something to knock it off and scratch the guitar. And then now I'm going to take these pickup rings off and see what's going on under there. Well, good news. This is a Tim Shaw pickup for sure. And I'll zoom in on it so you can see what I'm talking about. Hopefully that's visible, but there's an ink stamp on the pickup there. And not only does it have the patent number, but the ink stamp is what tells you that it's really a Tim Shaw. Now, that there are a lot of people that say the 85 and the 86 patent number pickups are just the same thing. They just don't have the ink stamp. But I love seeing that. In fact, I have an 85 that doesn't have those ink stamps, and I still consider it to be a Tim Shaw model. But this 684, that tells me that these pickups came with this guitar. Let's see about the bridge. Okay, perfect. Well, the ink stamp is present on this one too. It's much more faded, and I can't exactly read the date code, but there's no reason to believe that this is not original with this guitar either. The covers themselves have not been disturbed. You can see the solder joints are intact with all the resin that should be there, and you know, the finish extends somewhat into the body cavity here, not where you wouldn't expect it to be. The stampings look okay. Everything about this guitar screams originality to me, and I'm happy about that. So on the pickups themselves, they had a little bit of corrosion around the edge where somebody's hand rested or something like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and polish those up and get the corrosion off before it becomes much more of a cosmetic issue than it already is. For this job, I usually use semi-chrome. You can use any chrome polish, but I really like semi-chrome for a lot of reasons. Alright, well those shine like mirrors now, and there's just a couple of imperfections, but I actually like that on an old guitar like this. You know, nice amount of shine with a slight hint of age. So I'm going to get in these cavities next. So let's take a quick look inside the switch cavity and see what's going on in there. Since those pickups look completely stock, I suspect that nothing in here has been touched. Everything in there is exactly as I would expect it to be. So let's take a look in here. Well, everything in here looks good as well. Let me see if I can zoom in and give you a little bit better view. Alright, I doubt you're able to read any of this, but I'll just tell you. What you're looking for in here are date-coded pots that match the date of the guitar. So these pots say R1378404, and that 84 is for 1984, and that's a very good thing. So these have that metal backing that a lot of Les Pauls have, and the capacitors are just simple, you know, disc capacitors, and that's fine. And of course the steel braided wire, which is what we would expect to see inside of an American Gibson. Alright, and while we're still on the back of the guitar, there's one other thing that I always like to check out, particularly on 84 Gibson instruments, and that's the serial number. The serial number on this one starts with an 8, has 3 numbers in the middle, then the 5th digit is a 4, which tells me that's an 84, and then the next 3 digits on this one start with a 5. 500 and higher are the Nashville plant, and below 500 are the Kalamazoo plant. Kalamazoo was closed in 1984, so I always like to check and see, you know, whether it's a Kalamazoo guitar or a Nashville guitar. And that's just kind of an interesting time thing about this period of Gibson's history. It was a transitional year. All right, so where things stand here at the moment, I've got my stop bar back in place. It's a little bit higher than when it started because it needed to be, but I haven't really adjusted the action much. I did dial it down some, and I may play around with, you know, setting some things up just lightly, but until I get the right gauge of strings, which I'm going a little bit lighter than these, but until I get those and that tuner replaced, I'm not really going to worry about setting the neck up completely. So I'm talking about relief, action, and all of that. Also, I don't have my knobs yet. Those knobs are coming, and they should be here next week. So when those come in, I'll be replacing those right away. There won't be any delay for you because of movie magic, but there is a little bit of a delay for me, and we'll come back to that. Okay, through the process of movie magic, I now have my new knobs. And they are genuine Gibson parts that I got off of Reverb. Now, I'm going to try to pull these off with the method that I've used before, which is to wrap a piece of string around the knob and then pull up. If that doesn't work, I'll have to fall back on a puller. but I really don't want to do that. So let's see if this method works. Got it. Alright, well hopefully you're able to see that method. You just wrap the piece of string around the knob, basically around, you're going under the knob around the shaft, and then you're pulling straight up, and I'm having to work it back and forth just a little bit. So in order to get that kind of leverage, you really do need to go around the post once. If you just try to slip it under and pull it up, it's going to slip off the knob. So I'll pull these other two and then we'll install. Well, I don't know if this will show on camera, but there actually is a slight difference in these two knobs. This is the new one, and these are the originals. And if you can see it in the camera, there are indentions around where the numbers go in the old knob, and the new knob is completely smooth all around the edge here. And what that translates to, and I really doubt this will be visible in the video, but this knob, the numbers appear to be raised inside the clear, whereas in this knob they appear to be completely flat. Also, the paint is slightly different. This is a much brighter, thicker paint than this one, and I think that's because this is simply a screen print on a flat surface. So, interesting difference. I'm gonna proceed anyway. There's really nothing that I can do about that except hunt down original knobs at some point, but I don't want to use those cracked ones, and these are just gonna have to do for now. So to install these, just make sure that all of your knobs are turned up all the way. And then the way I like to install Les Paul knobs are so that the 10 is facing the user of the guitar. Usually where that ends up being is that, like, if I drew a line between 7 and 8 on the knob, it would point straight up the neck. So that's how I'm going to install these. And I'm trying not to use any real pressure here because I don't want to crack these. I just removed cracked knobs. Alright, well, I got them on there with no damage, and they look a lot better than the cracked ones. But, you know, I will have to do my research and see if I can't find the absolute originals one day. In the meantime, I'll just keep these with the guitar in the case so that I always have the original knobs. Well, my tuner finally arrived, and I've removed the non-matching tuner. And you'll see it was basically one of these style. It's got the grommet that fits into the headstock just by press fit, and then the post goes up through that grommet. It doesn't really attach in any way. And a more modern style Les Paul tuner has an actual screw-in ferrule or fitting that goes into the body of the tuner itself. Now this is not a 1980s tuner. This is probably a 1990s tuner.
It's not a tuner. It's not a tuner at all.
Yeah, I know. It's not a tuner. It's an actual tuning peg. But anyway, I shorthand sometimes. But this is a screw-in style. So you actually have a thread that goes all the way through the face of the headstock and holds the tuner in place. I've got the string. I already had the string off. I've installed this into the peg head now. I just need to turn everything over and put the screws in from the other side. On the back side, I just need to install the screws, but I will point out, and never mind this piece of metal that's sitting here, that's just there so that a particular group of individuals do not copy my serial number. But anyway, the tuners themselves, you can see a slight difference. This is a way better match than this tuner, but even on the 90s versus the 80s, the cover is much sharper at the corners than on the 80s tuners. And the writing is slightly different. I think the height might even be just a tad bit different, but it's a way better match. And I think at first glance, people wouldn't even really realize that. Although I will say the posts on these tuners, the 80s tuners, are thicker than the post on the 90s tuner. So that's an interesting difference. Tuners that are on 80s models are made by Scaler or Schaller, I don't know how you say it, but Germany. I don't know the maker of the 90s tuner, but it says PWI on the bottom of it. So anyway, that's just a quick note about the differences. Let me get these screws installed. And to test this tuner out, I'm just going to reinstall the string that was on here previously. There's plenty of slack on this string because it was set up as a vintage style tuner that went through the post. So just need to put it on here and tighten it down. Alright, well, what's left? New strings, checking out the action, and maybe, actually, I think I might replace those knobs again. I know. I won't show that. I have a set of knobs that have those embossed numbers on the bottom, and that will clear up that issue for me completely. And I think these knobs actually sit a little bit lower to the body than they should, just because they're probably meant for a different model. Well, folks, we've come to what I consider to be a good place to end the episode today. I know I didn't finish changing the strings. I know I didn't finish the setup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to release a quick tip video on string changes. And I think I'm going to do a whole, maybe mini series on intonation. Because I just got a cool new tuner that I want to show you eventually. So with those things coming up, I think this is a good place to end this one. You know, when you see this guitar in future videos, I will have replaced the knobs, but I'm not going to put you through that like I said. I just appreciate that you guys watch these videos, and you know, when they get a little bit long, I want to cut them off because I know that 20 minutes is a big commitment. Anyway, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you guys liking and commenting on the videos. I appreciate all the subscriptions, and I'll see you guys next time.